Welcome back to the ARMORY channel. Today we're going to be doing a review on the EOTech Vudu 3-9. Now, just to be clear, this video is not going to be testing the durability or the longevity of this optic. We're going to be more just going over the features of it and kind of just comparing it to some baseline optics. So what I mean by baseline optics are optics that I have a lot of time on that I consider, for me personally, kind of the gold standard of optics in that category. So for example, the Aimpoint T2 would be a baseline optic for LED illuminated red dot optics. So with this optic being a little unique, as in it's kind of in between an ACOG and kind of in between an LPVO, I definitely consider this an LPVO, and I'll explain here in a minute. I'm going to be comparing this optic directly to my Nightforce Attacker 1-8 and also directly to my experience with ACOGs, the 1-4 ACOGs. So for those of you who are not aware of this optic, this is a LPVO, so a low power variable optic that is very condensed. It is a 3-9, so the lowest magnification setting on this is 3x and the largest is 9x. So the erector ratio of this guy is 3x, obviously, because 9 divided by 3 is 3. And it's also second focal plane. So the mounting solution on this is a little unique. It does have a mount kind of built in, and it uses a micro ACOG footprint. So if you have a micro ACOG mounts, it'll mount directly to those. And also, depending on which one you get, there's really only one version of this, but you can buy this with or without the red dot. You can get this optic with the EOTech E-Flex red dot out of the box. So this is what we got right here. So we got this optic with the ring mount and the EOTech E-Flex all in the same box. So as you can see here, we have it mounted up, and this is a singular optic package. Now, before we get into the video, getting into the drills that we're going to shoot and all of the sorts of things we're about to do, it is important to give the disclosures of our relationship with the company. This is something I haven't been good at in videos in the past, but I'm going to try and be a little bit better about it moving forward. So with EOTech, we're obviously business partners with EOTech. We sell a lot of their optics. We really like EOTech. We also got this optic set up for free for the purpose of this video here, and just for our review and for considerations of possibly selling this as one of our retail items on the website. So as we move forward, just make sure you keep that in mind, that we do have a business relationship with EOTech. But with all that being said, we try not to be biased with our opinions on things. So if I don't like the optic, I'll be honest with you. And if I really like it, I will still be honest with you. So this optic right here, like I mentioned, it does come in two different variations, as in with the red dot or without the red dot. Without the red dot, it's about $1,050. With the red dot and the mount and the optic itself, it's about $1,430. That's prices right off the EOTech website as of the filming of this video. So throughout this video, we're going to be doing some drills that kind of work on some fundamental shooting skills, and we're just going to see how this optic does through those types of drills, and I'll give opinions based on, again, my experience with my 1-8 Nightforce Attacker and also my experience with ACOGs. And then at the end of the video, we're going to kind of see, is this optic worth it? Is it worth the money? Is it something we would recommend? Because this is very unique, so I am very, very interested in this. Now, we haven't shot any rounds through this yet, so the first thing we're going to do is get this optic zeroed, and we're going to see how well we can zero it, make sure that we have a general idea that the tracking on it is satisfactory for obtaining a good zero, and we're also going to see how good of a group we can shoot with it at 100 yards. So I'm going to do a full rifle breakdown of this loadout at the end of the video, but just for the start of the video, just so you guys are aware, this is an 11.5 Daniel Defense upper on this guy. This upper is very accurate, so yes, it's a small gun, but we should be able to obtain good groups, and if we're not able to, I'm not going to blame it on the gun. So let's go ahead and get this gun zeroed. All right, so not the best groups out there. So this is the zero for the 3-9 right here. So this is about a little under 2 inches. So about 2 MOA group. This was actually the best 3-round group I got just before it was zeroed. So it is able to shoot pretty accurately. I will say the center dot of this guy being 4M away makes this a little bit difficult. So the circle is literally about the same size as the square at 100 yards. So obviously that's not the most precise reticle. So making precise shots is a little bit difficult, but the intended purpose of this optic is not to be a precision optic by any means. So, but still able to get, that's a sub-MOA group right there with an 11.5 carbine shooting 62 grain PMC X-Tech. So obviously it's definitely doable. This is the 0 with the red dot on top. I zero my red dots on my rifles at 100 yards just for continuity purposes, and I'm already in place. It's pretty easy. Before I start shooting, I can just get the red dot close to what the optic is just by like getting this gun set up on the bipod in a bag, getting the zeroed optic on target, and then just moving the red dot pretty close to it, and then fire a couple groups. And it only took about 9 rounds, and we're right there. So after that, took it out to some steel, out to 400 yards, made sure it was good, able to get some impacts. And the next thing I can already tell with this thing is that the glass quality is not Night Force glass quality. So it's definitely not the clearest glass. It's got kind of a fishbowl effect around the edges, especially all the way up on 9x. And I wasn't able to see impacts in the dirt from when I was missing the steel. That's something I can normally do very easily with my Night Force, even when I'm not all the way up on the 8x magnification. So yes, I understand that this is a very small optic. There's a lot of things going on in this thing to make this optic so small, but just to note, the glass clarity is not quite as good as Night Force. So first thing we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna start shooting this guy a little bit more practically. So first thing we're gonna do is work on the fundamental of vision. So we're gonna do a drill to see how well I can target transition this optic quickly. So we're actually gonna do it with the 3-9 and just the red dot on top, because like I said, this all came in the same box. So it's a singular optic package in my opinion. And we'll see how we do from there. So the drill we're gonna do for the vision fundamental kind of assessment with this optic setup is the designated target drill. So if you've watched any of the recent reviews we've been doing on the ARMORY YouTube channel, at least the ones I've been doing, you're gonna notice a trend of very similar drills. And I think this is gonna be kind of the standard that I go with when it comes down to reviewing things quite like this optic. So we have 5 targets. We've got a very wide range of target transitioning, and then we have a full-size silhouette guy out, I don't know, that's probably 40 yards or so. Then that will be our designated target. So I'm gonna start on the steel. I have to hit the steel in between each paper, and then I have to finish on the steel. So there's a lot of target transitions, and then we're gonna go left to right, and then right to left, and we're gonna do that with both optics. So we're gonna start with the 3-9 optic and go from there. It was 1193. Now we're just gonna do the same thing, but start on the right side. Still gotta start on the steel though. All right, 1238. Forgot what I was doing there for a second. Now, same thing again, but we're gonna use the red dot on top. Should be able to go a lot faster because obviously shooting through the main optic, I'm on 3x magnification, and shooting with that much magnification up close is not the easiest thing. All right, starting left to right with the red dot. Okay, bye. All right, so 1096, so about 2 seconds faster. And I had a couple mics on the steel. All right, so we're gonna go right to left this time with the red dot. So with the crappy reload, still faster by 100th of a second with the red dot versus the mini LPVO. So now let's go check the hits out, see how we did. All right, so far left target, this guy's about 10 yards away. Got 2 Charlies. Now this is not a shooting performance video by any means, but we do like to show hits. So not all that impressive. Those 2 Charlies were the first string of fire with a mini LPVO. Next target over, pretty solid. This guy, probably 17 yards or so. So definitely had to slow down to take this guy a little bit more comparatively to the last target, resulting in me confirming my sight picture a little more, obviously resulting in better group. Now this next target is 9 yards away or so. We have a micro combatant here, is what I like to call them. And we got 2 Charlies there. This guy, just looking for a flash sight picture on him and just kind of sending 2 rounds pretty quickly. So I'm pretty happy with the results on this guy. Not happy with the results on this one. This is about 15 yards or so. We got only 3 alphas and 5 Charlies. And then we got one more over here. I actually had to shoot through the boxes on this guy. This guy's probably the farthest target, but considering the fact I have to shoot through the boxes, makes me slow down a little bit, and that's going to result in generally better hits. So we got 3 Charlies, 5 alphas, and this guy's probably 20 or 25 yards away. So all in all, the target transitioning with this type of optic, whether it's an ACOG or this guy, is just not ideal. I'm having to target transition quickly up close. With magnified optics like this is not what they're designed for. So clearly went slow, hits weren't the best. The illumination on this guy, when it comes down to how bright the reticle is, I can see it during the day, but it's absolutely not daylight bright. So this is just not the type of shooting this optic is set up for. Now the red dot on top being mounted at 12 o'clock is pretty decent. So the E-Flex, I know a lot of you guys are probably aware, isn't the brightest pistol optic out there. On max brightness, it's definitely seeable. In the sunlight, we have absolutely no clouds out here, so we have max sunlight, and I'm able to use this just fine. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised with the red dot on top. Now, with it being all the way up top, the connection to the gun is not as good as compared to a lower 1/3. That's why I have this cheek riser setup going on here. So it's a very small cheek riser, gets kind of in the way with this optic, but since the eye relief is pretty short, I'm actually moving my face closer to the gun, so I'm actually really not using it when I'm looking through here. But when I'm using the red dot, this just helps get that point of contact with my face to the rifle. So when I'm target transitioning, long story short, my connection has to change, or it does change in between targets, and it just is a little less inconsistent when my face isn't to the gun as well. So yes, the top dot is better than the magnified optic for this type of thing, but still not as ideal as a lower 1/3 red dot. So next drill we're going to do is a recoil assessment type drill. So we're going to do an accelerator drill. So we're going to have 5 targets set up all at different distances, and we're going to see how well we can, basically how fast we can shoot this gun controllably with both the optic setups. All right, 511. .22, trigger freeze at the end. Let's go ahead and check the hits after we shot just the magnified optic, see how we did. All right, so the first string of fire, we started with the close target. It was 3 rounds on each, and then we made our all the way back to the farthest one. The second string, we started with the farthest and came to the closest. Here's the closest. This guy's about 10 yards away. We got 2 Charlies, 4 alphas. So the close target, that's where I'm trying to make up some time, just shooting a little bit quicker. And then the rest of these targets should have a little bit better hits because I'm slowing down a little bit, but I can already tell by one of them, they're not the best. So there's all alphas there. Moving here, so there's a 3-round group from 1 string of fire, and here's another one. So not terrible, but having 4 Charlies is obviously not desirable on a 20-yard target with a carbine. 25 yards, we got 5 alphas and a Charlie, so here's 1 3-round group, and there's another. Not too shabby. And then the 30-yard target, we have 1 Charlie and 5 alphas with a kind of a flyer going on there. So I will say this optic was surprisingly pretty good for this target array, and that is because all of these targets are really close together, so they were all within the field of view. So I was basically just hard focusing through the optic on the target. It wasn't so much, shooting as I should necessarily, with just keeping my vision focused on the target. I was looking basically almost with my left eye closed. It wasn't literally closed, but I was just hard focusing through the optic because I was able to see everything. So I was able to shoot pretty quickly. But also considering the fact that I have a little bit of magnification on these types of targets, I was able to confirm my shot placement a little bit better, as in I was able to confirm where my reticle was on the target a little bit better, obviously comparatively to no magnification, resulting in some pretty decent hits. But now we're gonna shoot with the red dot and see how comparable it is. All right, so 438, it's a whole second faster. That was up close first. Now let's start with the far target. A little bit of trigger freeze. I'm a little tense with my my main hand here, so let's go check the hits out. I pulled a couple shots. That was all me. So up here at the 10-yard line, all alphas there. Again, we're shooting pretty quick here, so don't expect the tightest of groups. Here's our 15. We got 4 alphas and 2 Charlies. This is probably a 3-round group here, and this is probably the other 3. This is where I actually start to think that the magnified optic has a little bit of benefit for poor rifle fundamentals, is what I'm going to call it. So I'm pulling the gun in a direction to compensate for recoil in a direction I'm not supposed to, resulting in this group down here in the low left. And you're going to see it in the next target too as well. But with the magnified optic, I'm watching, I can see everything, right? I can see the reticle on the target, exactly where it is, a lot better than just a red dot. So I know that the reticle's here when I'm breaking the shots, versus with the red dot, I'm just seeing a flash of red and I'm kind of pulling it. Okay, same trend here with the red dot here at the 25-yard line. So 3 Charlies, 3 alphas. And then at the 30, it's pretty similar. It's just opened up a little bit. So we have our first delta, couple Charlies and 2 alphas. So overall, I don't think this optic, again, it's obviously not designed for shooting like this, but when you're shooting this type of target array, as in probably like 15 yards or further, it's not a bad idea to shoot with a little bit of magnification if you have a low percentage target. So let's just say you have a no shoot, or you can only see part of the target, or you can only shoot the head box, something like that. Shooting with a little bit of magnification will give you an advantage over something like a reg dot, just because you can obviously see a little bit more. And these targets are a little bit far away for our human eyes to see. We like to see things a little bit closer than that. Apologize, the wind is crazy here. Apparently we have a windy season and we're in the middle of it. At least every time I film, it's in the windy season. So all I have to say, the accelerator drill with a little bit of distance in the targets, this optic performed quite fine. The top dot, again, not having that consistent contact or connection to the rifle, just a little bit more difficult to control the recoil. Now I will say, this is the Surefire RC3 with a A5H2 buffer system. Again, I'll talk about the full build of the rifle once we're all done, but this is like cheat code when it comes to recoil control. So I don't shoot this gun very often, so I'm overcompensating for it a little bit. Probably tighten that screw down. So it is extremely flat, but still, even with how flat this gun shoots, not having a consistent connection to the rifle tends to make me shoot a little bit worse than I normally do. All right, the final drill we're gonna do with kind of up close shooting is something that I call the box shuffle. This is just a drill that I made up, and it's named because, you know, we have these big boxes on the range. But this is a very good shooting and moving drill. So a lot of the movement that you do in USPSA or these practical shooting sports have some choppy movements, and being able to be fluid and efficient in these choppy movements are going to make a big difference. The longer form movements, as in like moving 5 to 10 yards at a time, necessarily isn't as hard, in my opinion, as this sort of stuff, or at least not for me. So we're gonna see how well we can maneuver efficiently with this type of optic setup while getting good hits. So I think with the magnified portion of the gun, it's gonna be a little difficult, but we're gonna try. So behind each box, there's 2 targets. I have to engage a target on the left and the right side of the box. The box is my big visual barrier. I can't see both targets from any single position behind the box. And then I move over to another box, and same thing. There's 2 more targets, and just kind of how the drill is set up. So this is a really good drill for pistol. Haven't tried it with the rifle yet, so see how we do. All right. actually wasn't all that bad. Kind of just treated like the optic, like it was an occluded red dot. Considering the illumination is not that bright, it's not the easiest thing to do, but I think I was able to do it. All right, it was a little choppy. Let's see if we can do a little better. We're gonna go the opposite direction this time. Stand by. Not too bad, not too bad. So let's check those hits out. So that was a 637. So this is a target started and finished on. It's about 10, 15 yards away or so, probably 12 yards. 3 alphas and a Charlie. So this target, you can only see from the right side box, 3 alphas and a Charlie. So 2 of these shots were taken while on the retreat and kind of walking backwards. So it makes this a little bit difficult. And then this next target is the same thing, but just from the other box. We got 4 alphas here. So all good there. And then we got 3 alphas and a Charlie. So the hits were actually not too bad. Now let's just see if this optic actually slowed me down. So we're gonna now move to the red dot and see if the 637 time is just slow, because considering these hits, the targets are pretty close. This is 12 yards, about 12 yards or so. And the other targets are even closer, but they're a little bit harder to hit in my opinion. So we're gonna see if we can just crank the speed up a little bit with the red dot. All right, so that was a 520. That was a little over a second faster than the last run with the magnified optic. Now let's see. The speed looks like going the other way. I did push the speed a little bit, so not too confident with the hits on these close guys. All right, here we go. Stand by. All right, 559, still quicker. I did put my red dot basically at the hip on at least one of these targets. So let's check out the hits. Yep, it was I had the red dot all the way down here, pulled a shot, and then fixed it on the second shot. That was on the way back over. So not good, obviously, don't want to see that, but we all miss, it's okay. So this was the other time, I was just down here on my index. So this was my first 2 shots. This is walking backwards. And then when starting on the right side, coming back to the left, shooting while I was exiting that position, I just indexed low and broke the shots off anyway. Here, these were fine. I'm happy with that, especially at the speed I was going. These are my first 2 shots, finishing the first drill. And then when I started, this is my first shot. Obviously not happy with that, fixed it with the second shot. So just a poor index in my opinion on this one. So this type of shooting and moving, yeah, this is a very short drill, so probably not the best sample size test for this sort of guy. But if the illumination was just a little bit brighter with this guy, I think this type of shooting could be a little bit easier if you just treated it as kind of like an occluded optic. But considering that it's just kind of dim, it just takes your brain a little bit to actually recognize that there's something red in the area that you want to shoot. So but still doable. Obviously get some pretty decent hits with it. Definitely the red dot is obviously easier for this. All right, so the last thing we're gonna do, we have a couple pieces of steel set up downrange, and obviously I think this is where this optic is going to shine. So we're going to compare how well we can engage some steel at distance with the red dot versus the magnified guy. So let's go over and shoot some steel. All right, so we got 4 pieces of steel set up. We have a reduced C-zone at about 130 yards. We have a 2 MOA gong at 300 yards. And then we have a full-size silhouette right at 450. And then there's a KYL rack right next to that full-size silhouette. So we're just going to off buzzer engage each of the targets, 2 or 3 rounds a piece. See how fast we can do it. We're obviously going to start with the magnified optic, and let's just see how well we can do it. I missed because I suck. Not the best position here. Right. All right, so let's go to that 300-yard gong. Okay, bye. All right, not too bad, not too bad. Took about 13 seconds to get 3 hits on it and 9 shots. I'll take that with an 11.5. All right, so let's go to the full-size silhouette, 450. Stand by. I think we hit it 3 times. I think I hit it 4 times, but we sent another one just for safe measure. It was 20 seconds with the reload, so not too bad. All right, now I know how this is going to look and I know how this is going to go, but we're going to try and shoot these targets with the red dot now. So we'll start with the 130-yard target. We're gonna use the same position here, off the buzzer. This is probably the only one I'll be able to hit. All right, stand by. .452, 3 for 3. All right. We're gonna go for the gong. 300. Stand by. No way. I hit it once, so what I'm doing is it's really easy to see splash, and I'm just basically shifting my point of impact based off the splash onto the gong. But I hit it once, not worth any more ammo to try it. Now, the full-size silhouette at 450 should definitely be doable with the red dot. It's a little hard to see the guy, but it's a big target, so we're gonna see what we can do. We're gonna give it about 10 rounds, see how many we get out of it. Stand by. There's 1. There's 2. That was 3. Wow. That was 3 and 10. Not too bad. We got a little bit of wind. All right, so obviously, if I were to have to take a shot like this, you know, a 450-yard shot on a full-size human, I probably would not be doing that with the red dot. That's very risky. And really the only reason I was able to impact him is because I can see the splash, and I was able to, again, shift my point of impact based off the splash. First run impact probability is obviously greatly increased with the magnified optic. Now, how did this do comparatively to an ACOG and a Night Force attacker, you know, or just a good LPVO in general at this sort of shooting? It did okay. So the field of view on this is pretty decent. So with this guy being so small, so lightweight, the rector ratio being only 3x, there's no free lunch with these optics. Generally, when optics get this short, you generally sacrifice something, and usually it's field of view or your eye box. This has a pretty good eye box, and the field of view is pretty good. So I think it's a pretty good happy medium between the two. Now, what I think this optic definitely sacrifices is glass quality. So this is not very clear glass, in my opinion. It's pretty cloudy, but it's definitely still good. So it's really just going to be dependent on what you're going to be using this optic for, as in like how far are you trying to take this guy. If you're trying to keep this in with this within 500 yards, I think this is very sufficient for what it is, especially with how small it is. You can tell that this is probably intended for smaller carbines, maybe, you know, 11.5s, 12.5s, or, you know, maybe 13.7s or 13.9s. But overall, pretty good at shooting distance. I still definitely prefer LPVOs like the Night Force. In comparison to the ACOG's field of view is just tremendous. The glass quality is tremendous. The reticle in the ACOG is better. So for me personally, I can shoot these type of targets a lot easier and a lot faster with an ACOG, even though the eye box is a little tight, just because everything else going on with the optic is so much better. So, all right, I think that's all of the shooting we're gonna do. Now we're gonna walk over and wrap this guy up and give some final opinions and final fifis and things. All right, before we close things out, let's talk about just this rifle build real quick for those of you that are interested in the particulars of this specific carbine. So I'll just go from the tip of the rifle all the way down to the stock. So we have a Surefire 4-prong muzzle device under there. That's been my favorite muzzle device for a very long time. It's got a Surefire RC3 suppressor, also my favorite suppressor. I have over 10,000 rounds on this particular can, and it is incredible in every way possible. So that's what I got going on here. We have an app PLC, so it's a civilian version of the PEC 15. In black on top, we have just a standard Surefire Pro flashlight, so not a turbo or a vampire. We have a Harris bipod. This is, as of the filming of this video, going to be on the website very soon, if not already on the website as of when this video is released. So one of our favorite bipods, especially for the price. And then the upper receiver group, we have a Colt upper, a Colt bolt carrier group, but with a Daniel Defense barrel and the Daniel Defense MFR M-Lock rail. So the this rail paired with Magpul rail covers is probably my favorite combination. It gives like the perfect width to a rail for what I like. It's very grippy, doesn't get very hot, and I think it looks very cool. So I assembled this upper. Daniel Defense sent this rail and barrel out to us, and as you guys saw with the groups, just zeroing this guy, it's capable of being sub away with 62 grain PMC X-Tac, so not even matched ammunition. Now the lower, just an Aero precision lower, just like every other gun in the Armory. We have our lower parts kit in there, Sons of Liberty A5 H2 buffer kit. So like I mentioned earlier, this paired with the RC3 suppressor, this gun has basically no recoil. It's extremely soft shooting and the muzzle doesn't move whatsoever. It's a little front heavy with all the stuff going on, but it's extremely flat shooting. The trigger I got going on in here is the Schmidt 2-stage trigger. So this is the trigger that we have on the website and that we sell. It's my favorite trigger right now for ARs, especially for the price. It's a very consistent, it's a very fast trigger, and I think it has a very good clean break to it. It's not as crisp as a Geisley, but like I said, it's still very consistent. And then the interesting thing going on with the stock, this is BCM's new stock that comes with cheek risers in the box. If you buy it with the cheek risers, you can buy the stock without them, obviously. But with the two cheek riser options, this is the lower one of the two, or the shorter one. This gives me, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, some sort of connection with my face to the rifle when I'm shooting the top dot, which I greatly enjoy. So that's the rifle setup here. Now let's get into our final thoughts on this optic here. Starting with the zero process, this optic was pretty easy to zero. It was way off paper when we first mounted it. And the only difficult thing for me personally is this is an MOA, so 1/4 MOA adjustments. And that is the only option for this optic. It doesn't come in mils. So that is the first thing that I look forward to with future iterations of this optic, is it coming in mil-based. So having a mil-based reticle and mil-based adjustments. Now the clicks for both windage and elevation are pretty good. They're not you know, the best out there. They're definitely not the worst, but for tracking purposes, the optic, or my groups, were very far left, and I had to bring them right 3 sheets of paper, and it tracked directly right. So I think the tracking on this is pretty good. And then I adjusted elevation and it went up. I went up too far, came back down. So based on my experience with this, just one optic here, the tracking was pretty good. Now moving on to the reticle. So we're gonna try and put a picture of the reticle up on the screen as I talk about it, or get some B-roll of it. But it leaves a lot to be desired. I think this is the area of the optic that leaves the most room to be desired. That is because the tree and the center dot is very, very thick. So it just really limits the precision capability, in my opinion, of this optic. If it was, you know, something like the Attacker's FC DMX reticle, which is just an incredible reticle, even for even going into a 1:8, so a lower magnification type optic. If they had something like that with, you know, that refined center dot, this guy would be a lot better, in my opinion. So I am looking forward to some future reticle options with this guy, because all intents and purposes, so everything I'm about to say about this doesn't change the fact that I think this is the future of LPVOs. The fact that we're able to get this much magnification with a good eye box, some decent glass quality, with some variable zoom in such a small compact optic is pretty awesome. So I don't want to negate from that, or, you know, throw too much shade at this guy, because this is a tremendous step in the right direction, in my opinion, for the future of LPVOs, or just variable magnification optics in general. But all that to say, the reticle just leaves, you know, a little bit to be desired there. Continuing on with the reticle conversation, this optic is second focal plane. So what that means is the reticle stays the same size throughout all magnification ranges. So on 3x and 9x, the reticle is the exact same. So what that means is, for the reticle to be zeroed, it needs to be on a certain magnification level for your MOA increments to be true. So if you build out a dope card for this gun, it's only going to be good for whatever magnification you actually zeroed the gun at, which is a little frustrating, especially considering how big the reticle is, how thick it is. And one thing that I noticed is the glass quality seems to be a lot better on the lower magnification settings. So I would like to be able to engage farther distances using, you know, that tree or whatever you want to call that reticle that's going on in there. But you just can't because it's second focal plane, unless I zeroed it, say, on 5x and then built a dope card based off of that. That's just one of the limitations of second focal plane. Now, with it being second focal plane, it does come with some advantages, one of which being a better eye box. So maybe that is one of the trade-offs that this optic just needs, is it needs to be second focal plane. But if this has to be second focal plane, just having a better reticle in it, I think will just still improve the quality of this optic all around, because I shot a 2.5 to 10 second focal plane Night Force NXS. I shot it in competition and I was able to use the reticle on other magnification ranges, but I also had an exposed elevation turret where I can dial. This guy is not set up to dial, so you really are limited a lot on some of the benefits of second focal plane just due to what this optic's intended purpose is. So in the future, I really hope to see this become a first focal plane, because I think it's just going to fit what this optic's built for a lot better. Now, moving on to the reticle illumination, how daylight bright is it? I've mentioned it a couple times in the video. It's not extremely bright, but you can definitely see that the reticle is illuminated. So for the optic's intended purpose, I think the illumination is sufficient. If you're trying to shoot like what we did today, up fast and close, a little bit more practical or action type shooting, it's probably going to leave a little bit to be desired. But all excuses aside, second focal plane, from what I understand, is a lot easier to get a much brighter reticle in there. So I just don't really see the point of not having a daylight bright reticle if it's possible, unless it's just trying to save cost or something like that. Or maybe there's a durability thing that I'm not aware of. But we're seeing some optics come out that are first focal plane that are daylight bright, just as bright as aimpoint T2s, like the Night Force Attacker, the new Primary Arms RDB optic. Even some of their MPVOs that are coming out in the future are having daylight bright reticles. I think that's a step in the right direction. The new Leupold 2 to 10 Mark V has a daylight bright reticle in it. I just think that's a good idea. And on that note too, the illumination illuminates the entire reticle. I think for what this optic is probably going to get used for most, just illuminating the center dot is probably a better idea versus the entire tree. I do know there's people that do prefer the entire tree to get illuminated, and that is for shooting at night and things like that, which I think this is what this illumination is set up for. But in my opinion, if I just have a very bright center dot, I can shoot practically these action type shooting a lot faster. I can treat it much more like just an occluded dot, a little bit easier. So in my opinion, I think regardless if it's a 3 to 9, a 2 to 12, 2 to 10, 2.5 to 15, wherever the case may be, just having a daylight bright reticle is the step in the right direction if it's possible, which we're seeing that it is possible. So I just don't understand why not to do it. So that about covers it for all of the main features of this optic. Obviously, the coolest part about it is the form factor. The fact that I have 9x magnification in something this small is extremely cool. So there's always the plus side of that if you're looking at getting something with magnification in a very small form factor. This is obviously a very good candidate for doing that. I will say, I did mention that the glass quality is not the best. I think it's better if I compare it to other optics, just so you might have a better frame of reference of what I'm trying to explain. So if you're looking at optics with glass from China or from Taiwan, that's where I think this is more comparable to. It's definitely not Japanese glass, at least from what I'm seeing through this optic. So if you have a cheaper primary arms LPVO, for example, or if you look through one, I think the glass quality is going to be pretty similar to this. It's not terrible by any means. You can definitely see things. It's definitely better than optics that are 10, 15 years old, but the standard is really high right now with some of the higher end primary arms, Leupold and Night Force optics. It's just not up there with them in my opinion, which is okay. It's still good. Like I said, I just do want to make clear that when people say good glass quality, Night Force Attacker, Leupold Mark V, primary arms PLX series, that's really good glass. And I think this is just like a step or two below those. All right, so I think we covered everything with this optics. Just to reiterate one more time, this uses a micro ACOG mounting solution. So optic mount options are pretty simple. So you don't have to worry about trying to get some crazy mounts that can attach a bunch of different things to them. This is nice and simple and durable, which I do appreciate quite a bit. And now I just want to talk about the E-Flex before we close this video out. So we've gotten quite a few E-Flexes in the Armory in the past, especially when they first came out. And We were pretty disappointed in them. Really excited that EOTech was coming out with a pistol red dot, and I think a lot of people were disappointed, to say the least. Just the optic design itself tends to not be the most durable. A loopholed footprint isn't the most ideal, and I know it's still pretty popular, but we would like to see, you know, RMR, obviously. And the reticle brightness just wasn't there. So, but with this one, however, the reticle is very bright. It's not as bright as an Aimpoint P2 or an RMR, but it's definitely bright enough to shoot and see very easily. So we have about as bright of a sun as we can get today, and I had absolutely no issues with it. So I think the illumination on this is sufficient on the max setting. Now, I don't know what that does to the battery life of it, but all I have to say, the illumination of this E-Flex is good, in my opinion. And for optics that are going on, you know, or red dots that are going on an optic setup like this, I don't think it necessarily needs to be the most durable optic out there. I see people with SROs on ACOGs. I use an SRO on my competition rifle. It's been fine. It's just one thing you can't drop test it or anything like that. So I think it's very sufficient for this setup, and actually did like it quite a bit. Now the ring mount that comes with it, it can be mounted in any orientation. It literally just rotates around and you just tighten it down at whatever angle you want. So you can mount it directly to the side at a 45-degree angle, or straight up top like this, like I did, and which is pretty cool. So there's lines on the side of the optic so you can line it up for mounting it directly at 90 degrees, which I think is very helpful, because obviously it's a little bit difficult to make sure that it's mounted, you know, exactly at 90 degrees. But even if it's off just a hair, maybe a half a degree or a degree, you can still zero it and it'll still be fine. You're not gonna have shots that get thrown off at crazy distances or anything. It'll work quite fine. So I actually really enjoyed the EOTech E-Flex on this setup. So we did a lot of talking, not a ton of shooting, so I do apologize if the video is or was a little bit boring, but I do appreciate you guys for watching the video this far. Hopefully we passed on some information that could be helpful to you guys regarding the EOTech Vudu 3-9. But if you guys have any questions regarding this optic, any other questions about some other opinions we might have on it, because obviously we do a lot more with these optics than just what you see in YouTube videos. We looked at it pretty extensively before we filmed. We will continue shooting it. So if you have any questions regarding, you know, again, just additional opinions, or any questions about this rifle setup, or really any questions about anything at all, just go ahead and shoot us an email at team@trex.armswith.com. They can get forwarded over to me and I'll be happy to help. So appreciate your guys' time. And until next time, this is Brandon from TREX.